with 25 years of experience from the restaurant industry, and with one of your proudest moments of opening Benugo overnight in a British museum. Yeah.
So yeah, when I first joined Benugo, coming up to 6 years now, one of my first IT projects was to take over the catering operation at the British Museum from a previous caterer. So they closed down at 5 o'clock, and we opened the whole operation back the following morning for 10 a.m. So big challenge, so good test.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Mark, for being here. My name is Sam, and I'm working as a business developer manager at Quinyx. You all are very welcome. So we have Dennis in the room, we have Craig, we have Rebecca, Kristen, Matilda. You're very welcome, and you are all able to ask questions as you wish. This is the instructions for the questions, so you can use the questions and answer function in your dashboard, and we will answer the questions after the seminars. But please put your questions through already, so your question gets on the top of the list, so we make sure that we can answer it. So Jovita, Andrew, please join, write your questions as we go, and you're all very welcome to listen in to this 30-minute session with 15 minutes Q&A afterwards. Mark, are you ready?
Yeah, ready to go. Here we go. So, cool. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me for the next 30 minutes. Sam and the guys at Quinyx asked me if I would do this webinar to tell you a few little bits about how we've progressed with taking on board the Quinyx application and how we've progressed so far to date. We've been working with the guys at Quinyx now for just about over a year, and I have to say it's been a very, very positive experience, and that's just not a bit of sales talk for Sam, okay? You know, this is a genuine reflection of how the last 12 months have gone. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Benugo. It was founded in 1998 by Ben and Hugo Warner, so that's where the Benugo comes from. A lot of people ask the question, how do you come up with a name like Benugo? Well, there you go. Two brothers opened their first cafe deli in Clerkenwell. Some years later, after Ben and Hugo had developed the business, we were bought out by Alistair Story. Alistair Story is a renowned caterer and hospitality expert professional, and he's the chairman of WSH Group, which is now the UK's largest independent catering company. And he decided that Benugo was a really, really good fit to mix with Baxter Story, Portico, Holroyd Howe, and his other brands. So as I was saying there, now Benugo is a key brand in the UK's largest independent catering company. Benugo's got a really, really diverse portfolio. We're not just a high street cafe deli any longer. In the early stages, Ben and Hugo were asked if they would consider taking on the catering operation at the Victoria and Albert Museum down in South Kensington, which again is one of London's most prestigious venues and destinations for the tourists. But that's grown over the last 20 odd years. We've got some really diverse blue chip prestige sites, which include the Royal Parks. We're in the Serpentine, we're in Regent's Park, and now we're in St James's Park as well. The performing arts, so Benugo operates in the Barbican, it operates at the English National Opera, and we also are very pleased to be able to operate the catering at the Institute of Directors as well. Since 1994 to present date, Benugo has grown from that first site at Clerkenwell. We now have over 110 sites, predominantly London-based, but we also have sites in Scotland, Oxford, and more recently, we've taken on some regional sites on behalf of John Lewis. John Lewis wanted to bring in a certain niche brand across their department stores, and so now we have 6 Benugos located within John Lewis. And subsequently that's grown to a workforce of some 2,700 people now. There we go, just preempting my point about where we are with Benugo. One of our most recent acquisitions, and it really is a very, very cool destination, is Greenwich, which consists of the Cutty Sark, the Royal Observatory, obviously where Greenwich Mean Time comes from, and also the National Maritime Museum. So what we found is that over the years, Benugo has grown to such a degree that last year our sales turnover of over £100 million, and our hourly wage bill, if you equate it to industry standards, would have been in the region of around about £30 million. And that is a huge amount of money. And I think the business would probably agree with me, and the operators would agree with me, that that is the real pinch point. If you can control and manage your labour, you can eventually convert that to a successful bottom line profit. So that's where we started to discover that we needed to take greater control of our labour costs. Benugo is a very, very laid-back culture. Although we are a significant business now, and nobody would turn down the opportunity to make £100 million a year, we're still very entrepreneurial. We like the general managers and we like the operations managers to be able to manage the business that they see. They want to take it in that direction. But at the same time, we obviously are a business of a size now that actually requires core systems and efficiency. So the reason that we started looking for the labour scheduling tool, or a partner to help us manage our labour of over 2,700 employees, was driven by all of our businesses rotoring and scheduling their staff through Excel. And I think that's what a lot of the industry does still to this date. The sites will manage their business by Excel. I think Excel is probably the most widely used tool in the hospitality industry. But of course that brings its challenges. If you want to grow the business, you have to have a really quick turnover of data. You have to have ease of access to data, and that's not easy to do if you're trying to deal with 100 spreadsheets. And also as well, if you think that the time and effort that is spent from a central resource trying to draw that data into the business, just to get that overall picture, there was a lot of manual processes. Our finance team, whilst very, very good at calculating our labour percentages against sales and against budget and against forecast, there was a lot of manual processes came into that. And as I just outlined there, getting data in an accurate, efficient manner would allow us to respond quickly to trends. One of the things that we correlate is our diversity of sites. So as you can imagine, on a glorious day like today, our parks are absolutely snowed under with customers. The destinations are outdoors, and they're really cool places to visit. But likewise, if you get used to the English weather, you'll find that we get a lot of rain as well. And that's where our museums and our internal destinations become really, really popular. So it's reacting to those trends and to those factors that affect the business. We do a lot of sharing of staff. If we find that we're having a bad day in the parks, we'll cross over some of those staff to the museums where we know that the business is increasing, and also vice versa as well. The museums will staff up for a busy day, then they'll find that the sun comes out before you know it, everybody's heading to the park. So there's a lot of need to be able to react and move stuff around and make those changes.
And if you have any questions to Mark about how they use Quinyx, how they move the staff and get the payroll right, and with contracts and labor law rules, just put your questions in the questions Q&A section. Write your questions, and we will answer them in the end of the webinar. If you have any questions about how Mark purchased or how Mark is trialed and so on, anything that Mark is talking about, just ask your questions and we will answer them later. And also welcome to Tristan that just joined, and Man Lu that is joining us now. We have guests from all over the world listening in today. Yeah, so please continue, Mark, with what you were looking for when.
So around about 2 years ago, we realised that labour scheduling was going to be a really key part. So we started doing our evaluation of the suppliers that were out there, and you can see that we evaluated 3 suppliers in the labour scheduling market. We were approached by a very local British company, S4 Labour. The guys at Quinyx, we reached out to them and they came back to us as well. So here we are today. And also finally as well, we were approached by Hot Schedules, and also a couple of our operations directors who have come over from across the pond from the States to work with us here in the UK. Hot Schedules is a very well-known, renowned business tool in the US. So again, we evaluated those 3 suppliers. We allocated pilot sites for each of the suppliers that we were looking to work with. So we gave them a selection of sites across the Benugo business. And from the outset, what we wanted to focus on was a scheduling tool that worked primarily for the business. We didn't want a labour scheduling tool that told me that I had to put John Smith in this rota for X number of hours per week. It was all business based. We know generally what it takes for us to be able to open a business or open those doors first thing in the morning. We might need 4 chefs in the kitchen, we might need 8 people front of house, we'll need a team leader, we'll need 3 baristas. So it had to be a solution which was business based. We weren't looking at people. People were very important, and that's not to put them back to the side, but it needed to be business based. We knew that it took us 60 hours to open the business, and that's what we were looking for. Ease of use as well. I think that Sam mentioned I've got 25 years under my belt in the hospitality sector, which is quite frightening. But at the same time, I'm very happy with the way that the career has gone. But in the early days of my career, software, technology, PCs, smartphones, they were not part of your day-to-day working. You had paper rotas, you had telephones where you were contacting people on their home landlines to get them into work. But obviously over that 25 years, technology has come on leaps and bounds, and it's probably one of those periods in time that you feel really glad to be part of, because now we have a lot of tools that make life very easy. So our management team as well had to have a piece of software that was easy for them to use. The big factor and the big discussion topic that came up on a regular basis was, well, you're giving me a piece of software and I can do it just in 10 minutes on my Excel spreadsheet. So it's a big argument. You can't give somebody a piece of software or a new business tool which actually keeps them tied to their desk for an hour when they were doing their rotas previously in 10 minutes on an Excel spreadsheet. And although everybody gets used to technology, we don't want to create a dashboard or a system that is, on the verge of launching the space shuttle. You need something that is really easy to use and manage, and that was another primary factor. That in addition to it suiting the business, it also had to be very intuitive, very interactive, so that people could use it in an easy way. It also had to have the ability to interface with our existing systems. As you can imagine, being part of WSH Group, we have a significant investment in our HR people system, which we are using PeopleSoft from Oracle. So therefore, the labour scheduling tool had to be able to interface with other systems and create that master data approach. I think that most businesses will have 4 or 5 core systems. That'll be purchasing, that'll be HR, finance, point of sale, and also payment channels as well. It also had to be functionally rich. We didn't want to take a partnership forward with a supplier that said, oh well, yeah, that's in our development pipeline. Yeah, we'll get that in 6 months. We'll get that in 12 months. What we were looking for was a development team that had already done the hard work and the hard grind, so that the vast majority of what we were after was there from day one. So from that internal pilot that we carried out with the 3 suppliers, we had a review session with the 12 general managers that came back with their feedback about the various systems that they tried, and we took that on board. And subsequently that led to one of the suppliers falling by the wayside. They were discounted at that stage, taking us to a final 2 selection process. I think I might have just gone. I just need to go back to the other slide. Sorry, Sam. Yeah, okay, and then that's finally, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. A little jump on slides there. Okay. Cool. So as part of that final selection process, we had a very good presentation. So there's just a couple of bullet points missing from the presentation. So I'll just go back and talk about that as to how we got to the final decision. We brought both Quinyx and Hot Schedule back into the room, and we did our supplier evaluations. One of the things that myself and head of HR at the time, Craig Rowe, were very keen to do was to see that the kind of partnership we were getting into, you could quite easily see from the results of the pilot how the software had performed and how functionally rich it was and how easy to use it was. But it wasn't about that. In 25 years I've been burnt a couple of times with making decisions on suppliers based on actual end product, but it's also a relationship as well. You've got to be comfortable and you've got to be happy in the dialogue that you've got with that supplier. So we evaluated Quinyx and Hot Schedules. We visited the States, Texas, where Hot Schedules was based, and the guys very kindly gave us an overview of the operation in Stockholm, where obviously Quinyx is born out of. And from that decision, we decided that Quinyx was were the guys for us, and that's where we went. So again, coming on to what we feel we've achieved by implementing Quinyx. We feel as though, and it has been it's not been a quick process by any stretch of the imagination. Please don't think that we turned on Quinyx overnight and suddenly we'd seen a 35% drop in time working on our schedule. That wasn't the case at all. It was very much a transition, and with change management comes some resistance, and also there's a little nervousness from the business when you're taking them out of their comfort zone and trying to give them something new. But we're getting there. If you talk about the sites that are now publishing schedules through Quinyx, I think we're up to around about 75% of the Benugo estate publishing their schedules to Quinyx. We're still very much in our development phase of the Quinyx relationship, and I'll come on to talk a little bit about that. But at the moment, the staff have felt that they've spent a lot less time working on their schedules now. The big factor in the business is that through the use of the smartphone app with Quinyx, and through being able to access your rota from your phone and being able to review your shifts and also talk to your manager by the smart app, the guys have actually spent probably 50% less time now actually talking to the staff, ringing them up, getting them on the phone. Can you do this shift? Can you do that shift? Oh, I need you to work from 10 till 2 and as opposed to 8 till 6. And so that is a big time saving that we've managed to make. Yeah, I can't see that. The window's just hiding it. And just as you can see that final arrow on the screen, we wanted to talk about the challenges that the hospitality industry faces with labour retention. Obviously, the industry has a very, very high labour turnover rate, particularly in this London-based sector. But we felt we hadn't made too much of an inroad in there, although it is one of the objectives that we want to do is if we can give our staff the tools to be able to talk to their managers on a regular basis and find working for Benugo far easier, I'm sure that they'll probably stay with us a lot longer, and we'll keep those staff retained. However, what we do want to do is to see 100% improvement in the communication with the employees when it comes to talking to their manager. But we don't want to do that solely by smart app. We still want that interaction between the manager and his staff, because that's where relationships are built. But some of the administration can be completely removed by implementing the labour scheduling tool. So I just want to spend 5 minutes or so just talking about some of the lessons that we've learned in the last year or so implementing the Quinyx module. Do your research. I think that was really big part is to look at other applications that are out there and to spend time evaluating and taking sound bites from the industry and also your colleagues, etc., that have worked with previous systems. I think we probably could have done a little bit more research, in fairness, but rather than just step into doing an approach with one supplier, I think it was very sensible for us to take 3 suppliers on board. It did increase the timelines, but that said, there was a lot of really important stuff that came out of that research that we were able to take forward. Now, you may think that's a really pessimistic statement that I make in the presentation, but I think that if you can, don't plan for failure, but certainly plan for a worst case scenario within a project. I think that from my experience, businesses see a project plan and they think, great, okay, we'll go from this stage to that stage, then we'll have some research, then we'll do some integration, then we'll deliver. I think we all know that projects do falter and stall, and therefore you should be very, very mindful of that during it. It's hard work implementing a system of this size. It's not easy. The hospitality industry and the retail industry is now light years ahead of where it was previously. If you talked about technology investment and IT investment 10, 15 years ago, it was negligible. It was really, really low down on the priorities. But now you'll see that there is a lot of investment in systems, platforms, applications that are going to make life easier, also reaching out to customers as well. But that comes with a lot of effort. Engagement is a real critical piece. I felt as though we faltered slightly during the course of the project, and we had to pick up the initial momentum. So we started with a lot of communication, a lot of presentation about what we were planning to do with the labour scheduling tool. And I think then we kind of took our eye off the ball a little bit, and we felt as though the momentum dipped away, and so therefore we went through that stale phase where we were expecting the staff and expecting the scheduling just to take a natural progression. Well, it didn't. It kind of faltered. So we had to re-pick that up again, and through the help with the guys at Quinyx, and certainly Benno and Brown, who was our project expert and our implementation expert, he helped us get back on track. And so that's where we've really felt as though this is a real key part. Continue the promotion, continue the communication, tell people in the business what you're trying to do, and don't fall foul of letting that fall by the wayside. One of the most critical things as well is to budget resource and to invest in the project. I don't think that we could have achieved the success that we've achieved so far to date without actually dedicating resource to the project, without investing in the supplier as well to provide their professional services to the business. These guys are the experts, and we're very much led by the knowledge and the expertise that they bring along. But also as well, from an internal project, find that dedicated resource. And yes, it will be a costly exercise to dedicate resource to a project, but it'll certainly pay off dividends in the long run. And there we go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your journey from a head of IT perspective of pursuing a new, very business critical tool on a market with a lot of very good vendors that has very good value propositions, and also taking it on for our organization with 110 sites, and so important sites as well, because people that visit your restaurant, it's not only a restaurant experience, that experience will reflect their experience of the venue, and in many cases, due to the venue's place, also the experience of London as a city. So it's so important that you make all your 2,700 team members smile and enjoy work. And I think that we're on a good way 1 year in.
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, one thing I just wanted to pass on to the group here as to how we've developed with Quinyx. So we've implemented the rotoring side of the business. So the rotors are being generated, and we've got the smart app out there with our staff in the business. Some of our sites have got as high as 95% take up on the smart app. I think we've got probably over around about 500 users at the moment. So out of 2,700, you might think that that's a very small amount, but actually we're quite proud of having 500 of our employees actually communicating with the business through the smart app as well. One part that we are really making some strong inroads in is in the integration piece of the business. I outlined there that we use PeopleSoft, or we've rebranded it People Matters, to manage our HR side of the business. Henrik and Andreas Melvin, who are part of the development team and the project team in Stockholm, they've been instrumental in being able to create the interface between People Matters and Quinyx. And also as well, we're now making inroads into looking at the integration between our point of sale and the Quinyx labour scheduling tool. Benugo is very, very fortunate that we use biometric time and attendance to clock in and clock out the staff, and we are very, very fortunate that we're now looking to develop that piece as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's going to probably save even more time, adding to those 35 and 50% time savings that you already experience. And yeah, it's pleasure for us to have you here. We had a big audience today, so we will now look into the question parts and the Q&A, and let's start with the first questions here. So we have a question that is about, just have to read it one moment, about so we have some, I will just read a question out loud, and it's about compliance, that I have an issue with our current provider with the Irish labor law rules, with different rules for bank holidays, and struggle with other markets as France. How does Quinyx work in market as France and Ireland? So Quinyx was founded in 2005 in the Swedish labor law market, and then we grew very quickly into the Nordic markets with Norway and so on. Since Sweden and Norway has quite complex and difficult and strict labor law rules, that has been a benefit for us to be able to grow internationally, and today we have customers in China, Australia, US, and UK. So we are present in about 32 countries, especially with customers as G-Star Raw, Rituals, Deliveroo, SSP, Compass Group, and so on. Now we have another question coming in. So this is a question to you, Mark. This question is, I understand it's hard to implement new software in existing company. How strong would you advise Quinyx to new companies?
I think that I wouldn't be here today doing the webinar if I wasn't happy with the way that we'd implemented it. It is difficult. To the person that asked the question, honestly, it's a long, hard, rocky road. But I go back to the point we made about partnerships. When we did the evaluation of the final 2 suppliers, we looked at the relationship between ourselves and the vendor Quinyx, and it just felt good. I would be more than happy to advocate the use of Quinyx in a new business. I think the guys here are very, very committed to customer success. Dialogue is very, very good. It's a very relaxed dialogue as well. Yes, there are contractual elements to the relationship, but it is a very, very open dialogue. It's very, very easy to pick up the phone, to join the guys and have a chat about a subject matter. What I said in during part of the presentation as well is that we faltered. We stuttered, and we actually approached Ben and the guys within Quinyx to say, look, how do we get this back on track? And they did do that. They came, they gave us some additional workshops. We did one-to-one sessions with sites that were struggling to utilize the system. And so, yeah, I'd be more than happy to to put forward Quinyx to a prospective new client. Yeah.
Thank you. That means the world for us. I think that in any business you have to aim for a business relation, especially in our business, that we actually invest a lot in the beginning to hopefully get the return back later, because we're also a business. At some point we want to make a profit as well. So the person that asked you the question says thank you.
Okay, and, you're welcome.
And we will, please, dear audience, interact. We know that there is a lot of people here, so we'll not be able to answer all questions, but we still have room for more questions. Just put some more question in, and we will read them out and answer them together. We have a question here that is Quinyx working on Mac computers? Do you use Mac or PC?
No, we're predominantly we are Windows based.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand this question because we have had this issue before. Many of our customers in restaurants are using Macs and various kind of platforms. The point with Quinyx is that it was born in the cloud. So when Eric was 17 years old, working in McDonald's, created the first version of Quinyx for this McDonald's shop, and then which made that all McDonald's in the Nordics went on using Quinyx, was that it was developed in the cloud. It means that everybody sees the same thing, and you can access Quinyx at any time from any computer or any platform. The only you need is a web browser. It doesn't matter if it's a Internet Explorer web browser or Firefox or Chrome. Whichever web browser, you need your email address or username. Usually the username is an email address, and your password, and you're in. So if you're in a hotel lobby, your computer got stolen, but you still need to approve those vacation days for your employees, which you promised, then you can just go on Quinyx and use it from wherever you are, because you can always access a computer.
Yeah.
Or download the app for free. The apps are free, and you can manage a lot of the functionalities that you need. You can access in the app, and we'll constantly develop it. And this is also something that is being in the cloud, working on any device without installing software and updating it. We launch new features, and with customers as you, Mark, that have some requests for us, we try to prioritize it and put it on the platform.
If I could just make a point there,
yeah.
if I may. One of the phrases that came out in the evaluation process is that Quinyx were predominantly mobile first. And we didn't hear that from either of the other two suppliers. Quinyx were wholeheartedly focused on generating software that was mobile friendly first, and then secondary, being able to access it from a PC. So we are a changing world, we are a changing environment. In fact, now operators, operations directors, operations managers, they don't really want to be carrying a laptop. They'd rather be carrying a smartphone or a very nifty little tablet. And so that's why as well we were pretty pleased when we heard that statement that their development cycle and their development progress would be mobile first.
And I think that this is also why we're growing faster than the competitive market in general, because the thing with Quinyx is that I don't see when I see our competitors' platforms is that, and this is why also we get invited to forums to speak to investors, is that we have an app that is a business-to-consumer interface, which means that it's not a stale and boring business-to-business interface. So if you're hiring, especially in the restaurant industry, millennials, that are used to Netflix, Spotify, to all the Facebook and LinkedIn apps, you need something that is the same. You can't send your employees, oh, please work for us, but now you need to travel 10 years back in time. That's not possible anymore. And this in particular, mobile first strategy has been a kind of brave, because in the beginning we were, quite odd, being focused so much on mobile. But I think that just in 1 or 2 years, everything will be a business-to-consumer interface. We have some more questions coming in. The question is, does the Smart app have a chat option between employees and manager, head office colleagues? So yes, the app has different communication applications. You can have polls, you can have employee surveys. We have a pure chat functionality as well. So you can chat with groups, you can chat with a person. It's very easy to do that. I will not show you right now, but I'm very happy to meet with you that asked this question and give you a quick web demo and show you how it works. Do you have some experience, Mark, that you want to share regarding communication?
I think it's just, as Sam was saying, when you're employing, the new generation of managers coming through the business are very young. Okay, so team leaders, baristas, new general managers. They're all of a very young, they're the age of my sons. And they want that that investment in technology. We have an example of a general manager who was at the Natural History Museum, Mafouche, and he was absolutely adamant. It was his entire goal to get all of his staff on the mobile app. And he uses that day in, day out now. He communicates with the staff via the smartphone app. He very rarely has to make telephone calls. He's using the smartphone on a regular basis. And it's that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's that kind of enthusiasm and real positive outlook that we're trying to spread across the business. Because people are reluctant to, I don't want to use the smart app, I don't know, I'll just pick up the phone and give them a call. So it is spreading. But we had this guy in Benugo who was just adamant that everybody would talk to him through the smartphone.
Yeah, that's, I think also, I mean, we are not on a mission to eliminate phone calls, but you will probably experience that phone calls is not as important anymore. If you can apply for absence, vacation, and so on, you don't always need to call. Sometimes it's even better to write, because then we remember it, because sometimes we're busy with something in the operations, we can't take the call, or if we want to ask a group of people to take a certain shift because we have a higher demand, so we maybe use the standard shift and we had the good weather template of shifts, and then making these calls, people don't answer, and people that want to come back to you. Instead of that, you just put that out on the schedule. The schedules and the communications are integrated. So basically, you get a list of people that want a certain shift. You can accept the best person. Quinyx will also help you to make sure that you have the right skills and the right experience with visas and everything checked, not breaking labor law rules. And that would make the life easier.
If I could just come in on a point there, if you take a look around society generally, and not just about trying to get somebody to come in to work earlier or come into work later. Take, for example, I work in central London. If you take a broad approach to the tube, the underground, okay? Communication is by I think texting is on its way out now. You've got live instant messaging with WhatsApp and other applications such as that. And you look at the generations across the business, across that spectrum, and the younger generations on the tube, they're talking to each other through the messaging apps. It's the older generation that they're reading the paper and waiting for that email, etc. And it's just a natural transition. It really is. That if you can talk to your friend about what you're going to do and where you're going to go, which bar you're going to go to, which time you're going to meet up, if you're doing that wholeheartedly through your smart app, it's a natural progression that you will talk to your boss about when you need to work and what you can be available for in exactly the same platform.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really is just starting to become more eye-opening when you do a project like this, as to how you do chat and how you do engage with people and how you do communicate with staff. Certainly, I'm far more a user of smart apps now than I ever was before Quinyx came along. But yeah, I think it's just in society as well. That's just a natural progression.
Yeah. Did you know that every day globally, on average, you have 150 times that you're actually taking your phone up and looking at your screen, and we can account 4 of them to Quinyx, because yeah, we have about 3.5 million app logins every month. And every day we schedule about 300 man years, and our users are looking at the app about 4 times per day, because they can see their schedule and they can communicate through the app, also approving their times and so on. So they have everything in their pocket, and the tube is probably the place where I would do it as well as a manager. We get some more questions coming in. So we have a person that is asking for some advice. I will read the question for you. I found inputting the schedule fairly laborious. A team of 20 with a multitude of shift options. No schedule is the same week on week. I tend to roll out for a 3-week period at a time. Any advice, please? So we want to roll out a schedule of 3 weeks, and no schedule is the same week to week. I don't know. Have you been working with schedules, or should I talk how our customers do?
Well, you could probably talk a little bit about customers. I don't tend to get involved in the scheduling day to day. The only point that I'd make there, that I see in the first part of the question, is that you find the inputting laborious, a team of 20 with multiple shift options. I'd like to ask the person that asked that question, is that because you are people focused, as in this person can only work this number of hours? It seems as though the question suggests that you're predominantly doing or building your rotas around the 20 people as opposed to the business, and that's what we needed to try and get ourselves away from. Is that we had our schedules. As I said earlier in the presentation, we knew what we needed to open a business at the start of the day. It just feels a little bit about in that question that you're having to make your schedules around a lot of the shift patterns and the shift options that are available through the staff. I think our templates in the business now, and again, it only comes with experience of using the system. I would say that probably 70 to 80% of our units have now completely changed the templates that they set on week 1, and they now changed their templates to reflect it differently because they've learned as they've gone along. Also, as well, in the configuration and the build stage of the project, partly through naivety and inexperience, but we've had 3 or 4 sites where we've completely torn apart the configuration and setup because we now know that there are easier ways to actually do it. In terms of how we actually schedule day to day, I'd probably have to refer to Sam and say, look, come back with some examples of how other customers do it.
So our more advanced customers, they have budget and forecast, so basically they can see, depending on weather or absence, previous years, or from the till systems, how much we sell each and every hour of a certain day, recommending what kind of shifts we need, especially if you have different units. You can actually see where you're doing the sales, so you can forecast that, and you can actually have Quinyx telling that by your rules that you set up in the system, you are good off to have an optimal manning of this amount here and this amount here and this amount here, shown you in the shifts. And then today we're moving a lot into a gig economy kind of work, so people can actually apply for shifts. So that's one way, but you can also have a fairness distributor in Quinyx, which is our Automan functionality, that is using Quinyx intelligence and making sure that you have the right person doing the right shift without, being unfair to people. But you can also have other functions in Quinyx that can prioritize people that have certain skills to actually be on the opening or closing shift and so on. I hope that I answered your question. We have time for one more question. So, and this question is about speed. We have here a case that the schedule is. I have a system that takes 20 seconds to upload a screen, and how long time does it take to load between screens in Quinyx? So this is a very interesting question, and we got this burning question from a client of ours, Deliveroo, that was experimenting as well with loading times, because as you know, the Deliveroo has 6,000 riders in London delivering food from restaurants to homes, and it is very forecast driven, and you need to have the right experience and the right region, and it's quite complex. And when we did a trial, we had a very hard demand from them that if any screen takes more than 3 seconds to load, we're out. And we didn't reach loading times more than 2 seconds between screens. And me personally, I believe that if you have an idea and a picture of how you want to do a schedule and how you want to apply a template and rearrange to make sure that, as your colleague call you or text you, that things is going to run smoothly in the operation, having smiling staff because they're optimally staffed, not too less because that will stress them, that will affect the customer experience, not too many. You want to be able to do that fast. So Quinyx empowers you to do that. We run on Amazon Web Services, which means that it's very easy to scale Quinyx. So all our global customers are on the same platform, getting the same updates, and actually the past months we had no downtime when we updated the system. So we have been up 100% and not even planned downtime. We had to turn the system down, which is quite interesting. And this is thanks to AVS that we can do that. So we have to finish this webinar. We hope that it has been valuable for you, that you have got some clarity and inspiration.
Is there an opportunity just to come back and those guys that we've not answered those questions for, we can just take them offline, and I'm happy to answer some more questions offline.
Yeah, so please, we will answer the rest of the questions offline. Just put them in the Q&A section. You can also email us. We will share our contact details after this webinar in a follow-up email. If you want to share this webinar with other colleagues, you can feel free to do so. We will send you the recorded version, and thank you very much for your time. We hope it has been valuable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.